Hey everybody, it's Mike. It's Monday, August 31st, 2020. I was missing in action for a few days because my computer went on the blink and I had to spend the time getting it back up and running, but we're good to go now and I'm back in the saddle. So I have a number of items to cover today, and the first thing I want to show you, because I've talked about this a few times, is how YouTube removes views from videos. They do this to me all the time on this channel and also on my Paul is Dead channel. This is the analytics screen that a content provider sees on their YouTube channel. Now, the video is in the land of make-believe, and that's the video I put up about a week ago. And so if I move my cursor over to where the bar ends, you'll see that as of August 31st, the video has 8,547 views. And August 31st is today. Now, if I go to my channel's homepage, you're going to see that video in the land of make-believe. It shows 6.8 thousand views. So what YouTube did was they took out 1.7 thousand views. And they do this all the time. This is the current number. This is the number they're going to run with. The analytics has a lag. It lags behind what people see on the home page. So what's going to happen within the next day or two? This 8,547 is going to come down to 6.8 thousand. They just ripped out 1,700 views without blinking. So the 8,547 views drove $34 in revenue. You can see that the revenue number is very small. So when they take it down to 6.8, this number will come down as well. So it will no longer be $34. It will be something less. Okay, so I just want to show everybody how this works. I don't know if YouTube realizes that their analytics lags behind what they're showing on a channel's homepage, but thank God there is that lag because content providers can see what they're doing behind the scenes. Okay, so I won't spend any more time on that, but I just wanted to show everybody how this works. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, this is an image that made the rounds in the mainstream media when the whole Kenosha, Wisconsin thing went down. And we can see here that there are burned out trucks. Okay, so at first glance you're thinking, wow, look at the destruction. This is where numerology helps you to understand that it's a staged event. So, here's the same picture, and look what they did. 56th Street, 5 plus 6 is 11, a master number. Through the window of the burned out truck, you see a speed limit sign that says 15 miles per hour. 1 plus 5 equals 6. So most of us who follow the work know that 11 and 6 are occulted numbers. But here's one that's very, very clever. Right here, hopefully you can see it. It says 322. And of course, 322 is the number of skull and bones. A lot of people ask, what does 322 mean? Well, it goes to Genesis 3:22. So if we read from the King James Bible, "And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil, and now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever." So what that is saying, if we use the contemporary narrative, is the Lord said, they now know the difference between right and wrong, just as we do, but they must not be allowed to eat fruit from the tree that lets them live forever. Okay, so 3 very important occulted numbers: 11, 6, and 322. Also, along with being the skull and bones number, 322 can also be interpreted as 3 times 22, or 66, which is the number of degrees within the pyramid of power. Okay, so what this means is the Kenosha event was staged and planned. And when I say staged and planned, I don't mean that nobody died or no one got hurt. I want to make that very clear. When I say staged and planned, what I mean was it was put into play. It was put into play to happen. Order from chaos. Problem reaction, solution. Okay, so that's why when I say that numbers are very important and the controllers paint by the numbers, and if you know to look for them, then you'll become a lot more aware of what's going on and how all of these events are all planned and all staged to happen in order to force social engineering, to force transformation, to bring in the New World Order, which is a technocracy. Okay, so I just wanted to point this out to everybody. Alrighty, so I know a lot of you saw this meme. The comments came in, and we can also see at the bottom there 427 thumbs up, 73 comments, and we see this person sitting inside this plastic bubble thing. And the meme says, "This is the person calling you a conspiracy theorist." And some folks in the comment section said, "Is this real? Can this be real?" And the answer to that is, yes, indeed. This contraption is real. So let's take a look. So here's a site called Under the Weather, and they sell gear like this, and it's called the Shield Pod. So let's read about the Shield Pod. The Shield Pod was originally developed to help protect healthcare workers from possible exposure, but it generated so much interest from regular folks and business owners, we decided to modify the style to accommodate everyone. This lightweight protective barrier pops open in seconds to provide added peace of mind whether you're out and about, wanting to practice social distancing, or on the job. Padded adjustable shoulder straps and waist belt keep the pod in place, and clear panels on 3 sides, armholes, and raised zippered front allow for full range of movement as well as 270-degree views of your surroundings. The uses are endless: the classroom, church groups, public transportation, workstations, team meetings, public servants, caregivers, and more. Thanks to rave reviews from educators, checkout staff, and transportation workers, the Shield Pod is in high demand. Limited inventory available. Can anyone believe this nonsense? Let's take a look at some of the pictures here. Page up a little bit. So here is fool number 1, and the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what are you protecting yourself from? There's no plastic here. Right here, there's no plastic. Of course, there's no plastic down here because you got to get your body in it. Look at the zipper up front. Here's the back view. And here's a guy on an airplane with this thing on. And here's a happy worker at a restaurant, I guess. And here's an elderly person smiling through their Shield Pod. And a teacher. Of course, we have to have a teacher with the Shield Pod on. So when people were asking, is this real? Well, yes, it is. It is real. And it's absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, so the next article is from the Christian Post, and it says 2,700 evangelicals warn against politicizing coronavirus, urge Christians to take the vaccine. So let's page down and take a look at what the article says. A coalition of more than 2,700 high-profile evangelicals spanning the fields of science and religion have signed on to a statement billed "A Christian Statement on Science for Pandemic Times." The article goes on to say that the word science has become a weapon in the culture wars. Scientists are vilified and their findings ignored, while conspiracy theories go viral. Sadly, Christians seem just as susceptible to these trends. Thoughtful Christians may disagree on public policy in response to the coronavirus, but none of us should ignore clear scientific evidence, of which there is none. We call on all Christians to follow the advice of public health experts and support scientists doing crucial biomedical research on COVID-19. And toward the end of the article, it says, the signers affirm that they uphold the authority of God's Word and see science as a tool to understand God's world. Do you believe this? Okay, so I'm going to leave the link down below in the description box, and you can read the rest of it. But this did remind me of Romans 13. And this is from the Common English Bible. If you'd like, I'll put the link down below. You can pick your version of the Bible that you want to read from. But Romans 13 says that every person should place themselves under the authority of the government. There isn't any authority unless it comes from God. And the authorities that are there have been put in place by God. So anyone who opposes the authority is standing against what God has established. People who take this kind of stand will get punished. The authorities don't frighten people who are doing the right thing. Rather, they frighten people who are doing wrong. Would you rather not be afraid of authority? Do what's right, and you will receive its approval. It is God's servant given for your benefit. But if you do what's wrong, be afraid, because it doesn't have weapons to enforce the law for nothing. It is God's servant put in place to carry out his punishment on those who do what is wrong. That is why it is necessary to place yourself under the government's authority, not only to avoid God's punishment, but also for the sake of your conscience. You should also pay taxes for the same reason, because the authorities are God's assistants, concerned with this very thing. So pay everyone what you owe them. Pay the taxes you owe. Pay the duties you are charged. Give respect to those you should respect, and honor those you should honor. Okay, some food for thought. I would like to hear the comments from my Christian followers, and let me know what you think. All right, so let's move to the next article. And this link was sent to me by my friend Sally, and most of us have seen this. Major League Baseball games and other sporting events have cardboard cutouts for fans because people can't attend the games because you don't want to catch the COVID. And it's the most ridiculous thing. And I was at the gym a couple of weeks ago, and it was a ball game playing on the flat screen in front of my treadmill. And I plugged in the headphones just to listen in a little bit, and I hear crowd noises. And I'm thinking, they have a soundtrack playing. They have a soundtrack playing of fans in the stands, but the only thing in the stands are cutouts. This is how absolutely bizarre this world has become. So, the Astros have their fan cutouts like all major league teams, and let's read. It says, "Take me out to the ball game, virtually. We cannot invite you back to Minute Maid Park just yet, but that doesn't mean you can't attend a game virtually with a fan cutout. For a tax-deductible donation, upload a smiling photo of yourself in your official Astros fan gear, and we will find a seat for your cutout at Minute Maid Park. Proceeds from every purchase made on or after August 30th will benefit the Astro Foundation's efforts to provide relief for families and individuals impacted by Hurricane Laura. For a donation of $100, we will place your cutout in the lower bowl seating area at Minute Maid Park. But wait! New! For a donation of $50, using the code FAN50, your cutout will find a home in the upper deck." Folks, it doesn't get more bizarre than this. We are living in bizarro world. And there are thousands of people who have done this. Because when you watch a game on TV, there are thousands of cutouts. There are so many people that are completely detached from reality and out to lunch that it's mind-boggling. Okay, so let's move to the next article. Some of you may have seen this. James Corbett covered it. And also Patrick Wood from Technocracy News and Trends. I highly recommend you subscribe to Patrick's YouTube channel along with James Corbett's. If you haven't already done so, I will put the links down below. This article is from Patrick Wood's website, Academics. Mask noncompliance is a mental disorder, sociopathy. And let's take a look at what it says. University psychologists in Brazil conducted a quote-unquote study that profiled those who are non-compliant with relation to wearing face masks and practicing social distancing. Those who resist going along with mandates for the greater good tend to display higher levels of traits associated with antisocial personality disorder, also known as sociopathy. And so what is sociopathy? And so Patrick pulled this from Healthline, and let's take a look. To receive a diagnosis of ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, someone must be older than 18. Their behaviors must show a pattern of at least 3 of the following traits. Doesn't respect social norms or laws. They consistently break laws to overstep social boundaries. Lies, deceives others, uses false identities or nicknames, and uses others for personal gain. Doesn't make any long-term plans. They also often behave without thinking of consequences. Show aggressive or aggravated behavior. They consistently get into fights or physically harm others. Doesn't consider their own safety or the safety of others. Doesn't follow up on personal or professional responsibilities. This can include repeatedly being late to work or not paying bills on time. Doesn't feel guilt or remorse for having harmed or mistreated others. So putting a sociopath label on people is a way to shame them, guilt them, vilify them, right? This is all mindfuckery. That's all this is. But let's turn the tables on the controllers. Doesn't respect social norms or laws. They consistently break laws to overstep boundaries. Well, they do this all the time. We don't have a constitution anymore, right? We see so many of them who have engaged in criminal activity, still walking around. They're not in jail, scot-free. Lies and deceives others, uses false identities or nicknames, and uses others for personal gain. Well, the controllers wouldn't do that now, would they? Now, they do make long-term plans, so this one doesn't really apply. But it says you have to show at least 3 of the following traits to be diagnosed or classified or considered a sociopath. So, number 1 applies, number 2 applies, 3 maybe not. Shows aggressive or aggravated behavior. They consistently get into fights or physically harm others. Well, they do that every day. So, there's 3. Doesn't consider their own safety or the safety of others. Now, they definitely consider their own safety. That's why they have a police department to protect them. They have to walk around with armed guards, but they don't consider the safety of others. Doesn't follow up on personal or professional responsibilities. This can include repeatedly being late to work or not paying bills on time. Well, they don't work, right? So this one doesn't apply. They steal from us. That's how they live. They operate the feudal system. Doesn't feel guilt or remorse for having harmed or mistreated others. Well, again, this is something they do each and every day. So out of the 7, 5 of them apply to the controllers. They are sociopaths. And other possible symptoms of ASPD can include being cold by not showing emotions or investment in the lives of others. They do that all the time. Using humor, intelligence, or charisma to manipulate others. Having a sense of superiority and strong, unwavering opinions. Well, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, the Rockefellers, we can go on and on and on. Not learning from mistakes. Not being able to keep positive friendships and relationships. Attempting to control others by intimidating or threatening them. Absolutely. Getting into frequent legal trouble or performing criminal acts. Well, performing criminal acts they do every single day. Taking risks at the expense of themselves or others. Well, they probably don't consider what they do to be risky. Threatening suicide without ever acting on these threats. And the last one, becoming addicted to drugs, alcohol, and other substances. This is stuff that they impose on us, right? When you think about it, the suicide rate because of COVID-19 is way up. So they have inflicted harm onto people, and they are responsible for people taking their own lives because they see no hope. They see no future. And they are also behind the agenda to get people addicted to drugs, alcohol, and whatever else. Things like porn and so on. Okay, so I will leave this article down below as well. You can read it. But what we're seeing here is they are taking their behavior and they are trying to flip it and push it on us and saying that if you don't wear a mask, you're doing these things. No, if we don't wear a mask, it's because we have a brain in our head. It's because we are critically thinking. It's because we are free thinkers. And we know this whole thing is a hoax. Wearing a mask is not healthy. And it's nothing more than a way to push the technocracy agenda forward. Okay, so let's go to the last article and end on a good note. And this comes from the American Institute for Economic Research, and the title of the article is Small Signs of Hope That Lockdowns Could Soon End. So the article starts by saying, for so many months, it's been nonstop bad news on business closures, arts trashed, museums shuttering, unemployment, missed surgeries and diagnostics, plus rising loneliness, drug overdoses, depression, and suicide, what we just spoke about. Every day has been as dark or darker than the previous one. And yet, here we are with the political class all over the world, refusing to admit error and fearing the reopening because they don't want to be seen as reversing course on the most catastrophic policies in modern history. And yet, there are some signs of hope, small ones we shall see. And that goes on to tell us that a medical advisor to Boris Johnson, Professor Mark Woolhouse, a member of the Scientific Pandemic Influenza Group on Behaviors, has actually admitted that the government had no idea what it was doing and so completely panicked with the lockdowns. And Professor Woolhouse says that we couldn't think of anything better to do. Lockdown was a pandemic measure, and I believe history will say trying to control COVID-19 through lockdown was a monumental mistake on a global scale. The cure was worse than the disease. And he goes on to say that I never want to see a national lockdown again. We absolutely should never return to a position where children cannot play or go to school. I believe the harm lockdown is doing to our education, healthcare access, and broader aspects of our economy and society will turn out to be at least as great as the harm done by COVID-19. Now, the thing we have to remember is there is no killer virus, right? So there's still people who are good intentioned and trying to reverse this mess who still believe that there's some kind of virus out there that's killing people or could possibly kill people. As I've mentioned in other videos, could there be a flu? Yes. Could there be a very bad cold going around? Yes. But ever since the beginning of time, flu and pneumonia-related deaths have been there. This was nothing more than a psychological operation that was put in place to get people to comply and to obey. It is a ritual. It is aligned with astrological occurrences, major conjunctions that are taking place throughout 2020. And it's all done as part of their magic to push their agenda forward. So I really wish more people who are speaking out, who are in positions to be heard, other than folks like myself on YouTube channels, would open up and admit that the whole thing was a hoax. And then they go on to talk about, in Europe, we see signs and hints of admission. The Telegraph headlined, Europe is at last waking up to its lockdown folly. And that article goes on to say, world leaders have hinted at an extraordinary admission. Lockdowns are a disaster, and we cannot afford to repeat the mistake. Okay, and I will leave this link down below. The article does talk about the U.S. and that there are no such admissions yet, zero. How plausible is it that among 50 governors, each with different locking down and opening up plans, and countless thousands of mayors and county health officials, that not one made any mistakes? It's ridiculous. At some point, all credibility among these people is lost. So again, folks, I think that those of us who are pushing back, those of us who will not comply, those of us who will not consent, we are making a difference. As I've mentioned in other videos, the mask is a ritual, as I've mentioned before, and even though there's a lot of people wearing them, I don't believe they have the numbers they need in order to make their magic work. And if I'm correct, this whole COVID thing is going to collapse in on itself. And it's going to send them back to the drawing board. And what that means is they're not going to give up. What it means is we are in a perpetual fight. Their will versus our will. And it's very, very important that we stand in our sovereignty, we stand in who we are as souls, and we fight back. All right, so with that, I'm going to leave you with a little guitar jam that I did going back about a year ago. I forgot all about it. It was sitting on my hard drive as I was fixing my computer. I discovered it or rediscovered it. So that's what's coming up next. The comment section is open. Everyone have a great day, and we'll talk soon.